Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. We are excited to have you at yet another My Cave edition. Inspired by frequent dinner conversations at Boston Pizza, My Cave offers Islamic-centric conversations on what it means to be a Canadian Muslim. So I'm looking outside the window today, and it finally feels and looks a little like December. But I'm definitely counting my blessings because we've had a good winter so far. I'm also counting my blessings because I get to spend my morning with these gents here. Great roster for you viewers again. It's looking like we have more first-round draft picks than the Edmonton Oilers. So let's get these introductions underway.
Wow.
My name is Cher, and I'm absolutely thrilled that I'm done finals.
Amazing. My name is Atif. I have a question for Cher. I'll save it for later. I'm 17 years old. Today's the oldest I'll ever be, the youngest I've ever been. Oh, no, I got it. The youngest I've ever been and the oldest I'll ever be.
Oops.
Okay.
Flopped that landing.
Assalamu alaikum, my name's Adam, and if I'm a first round draft pick of the Oilers, I'm definitely first overall. But yeah, I'm 23 and I'm a rookie here today, so see how this goes.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Zaki and I know nothing about hockey.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Mohammed and I second the final exams. I'm stressed, relieved, and can't wait to play hockey with Shersky today.
Inshallah.
What?
We're so Canadian.
We're going to the ODR.
And then there's me. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm probably one of the few, if the only Canadians born and raised here who does not care about hockey.
Yes.
And I also don't have any final exams to worry about, so I guess I'm kind of the outlier here.
What's your name? Who are you?
I'm Aaron. Thank you for reminding me, Zaki. I forgot this morning what my name was until you asked.
So we are all glad to have you with us today. I actually want to start off by discussing something my Ustra discussed a couple weeks ago, and it has to do with back home culture and kind of like a back home mentality. Funny story, actually. The guys here attempted to release a podcast talking about culture versus religion,
And it never got aired.
but we were unable to do so. I actually blame Atif. I think he was trying to drop a mixtape after hours,
Yeah.
but ended up dropping the mic instead and broke it or something.
No, okay, so what happened was I just switched to the laptop mic in between recording, so half of it was fine, and then the other half was so loud. And it just, it would kill your ears, so we just never released it. Maybe in the future. All in all, it was an okay episode, but it's in the past. I don't want to think about it.
It's the last episode.
And you can find his mixtape on youtube.com. So, coincidentally, my Ustra did discuss a similar topic, and it kind of had to do with being stuck with that back home culture, being stuck with that back home mentality, while living in Canada can actually limit one's scope of releasing events, releasing services, and releasing projects. And mixtapes, correct. That could be positively beneficial to other people. Now, one thing I notice about Canadian culture, it's very free, it's very open, and it's a participative environment. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a Pakistani background, and I've learned a lot of morals, values, and characters, but I do find that I identify myself more with the Canadian culture. Obviously, I have Canadian friends, I'm part of the Canadian school system, and things like that, right? So I can't really see somebody with the back home mentality being like, hey guys, let's start a podcast. You know, because they're more conservative. They don't like change as much. And obviously, I'm just speaking with personal experiences, but I do find that is true along the line. So the reason that I want to talk about this is because a lot of us here are activists. A lot of us here are volunteers. And part of our job is to motivate people to step outside the box, get out their comfort zones, which can sometimes be limited if you do get stuck with that back home mentality. So I don't know if you guys have any comments with that. I know this is something that I discussed with my Usra.
I mean, I think you pretty much nailed it. So the way I think of a whole back home mentality is kind of, I don't know if it's right, but when I think of a back home mentality, it's kind of negative towards me when I first think about it. So a back home mentality to me is someone who's super very conservative, like you said, and doesn't like change. But I think a religion like Islam is it should always be evolving in a sense where it's meant for different people. It's meant for everybody, and everybody's different. So there's no way you can stay the same and still have the same effect on everybody. That's not possible to me. So everyone has their own sense of Islam. It's like, you know that one quote. What's that quote Convert Connect uses by Tariq?
Oh, it's come to Islam as it is.
Come as you are to Islam as it is.
There it is.
And I think that's a really good quote to really establish what being a Muslim is.
You know, just to kind of play the foil to the argument, just to play kind of the foil to the argument, at this, like, with all the shortcomings that our cultural kind of background or someone who is deep in the cultural background has, and how as much as it doesn't apply sometimes in Canada in 2015, at the same time, like there are a lot of values that our culture has that are very positive and are quite needed in this day and age. And I feel that in the midst of our conversation to how to deal with back home culture, the society, we don't forget that there is actually a lot of good, and then we shouldn't be overlooking it.
So
Sorry.
that's okay. So I mean, I'm an outside observer in this case.
Actually, you're in the inside.
Oh yeah, I guess I am on the inside now.
Or you're on the outside? I don't even know anymore.
He's a
Do I
double
know you
agent.
anymore?
Double agent.
Yeah, so like I'm just from what I've observed, like I think the big part of it too is a generational thing as well. Just from my own observations, where a lot of parents who are maybe like first generation Muslims that moved to Canada, that immigrated to Canada, it's more common for them to have that kind of back home mentality, the idea that Canada isn't really quote unquote home, it's just a place to live. But then with people like our age or younger who were born and raised here, I think that like that sort of, to them Canada is their home because that's the country that they were born and raised in.
I think I agree. Going off of Aaron's point there, I think like as Muslims in Canada, I feel that we're very privileged to be here, and sometimes we lose focus of that. We lose that aspect of gratefulness for being in a country as welcoming and multicultural as Canada. And I think that's one of the reasons why most of us view this as home. And I feel also with like recent events going on in the news and stuff like that, as Muslims in Canada, we need to be Canadian Muslims and not just Muslims in Canada. And that's how we'll be like building bridges and not burning bridges. So that's something that we need to do, is we really need to be grateful for being here in Canada and try to make this place a better country.
Did we also mention that Adam is a poet?
And I didn't even know it.
You ever see that thing where he's like, "Wow, I'm a poet," and I wasn't even aware. Totally throws it away.
So if we are lucky, maybe Adam will be able to drop a couple lines for us near the end. I'm always there to drop a beat for you, buddy.
Yeah, we'll do that at the end as a goodbye, of the podcast. But really quick, I just want to let the listeners know something. So we're trying this new style of like recording the podcast. We have like this card that we're handing around so everyone knows when to talk, not to make it sound a little bit too hectic. So if there's like pauses between people talking, it's just that. We're just trying something new. You can let us know how it goes, I guess.
So yeah, this going back to kind of what Adam was saying there, this has already been such a patriotic podcast.
Yeah.
We started off talking about the winter, then we moved on to hockey,
Canada.
and now we're talking about how we should definitely be happy that we're part of Canada and be privileged of all our blessings. But no, Zaki was definitely right when he said there are so many morals and values and things that are part of the back home culture that we're so glad, or that I'm so glad that I have.
Yeah.
But the one major thing that I was talking about was more of like on the side of innovation, on more of the side of creating events and being able to adapt to that Canadian culture, just because you do have to adapt to the Canadian culture in order to provide events that would be beneficial to others. So that's just kind of what I wanted to touch upon. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we talked about that. That was something that we missed releasing, so that's good.
Yeah.
You guys did have Lustra today.
Yeah. What do we do anything?
Did you guys do anything interesting to talk about?
I feel like the podcast is a way for us to reflect on our Usra.
Well, I got to promote my Usra, so I would love to hear what you guys did.
We spent like 3 episodes promoting ours. I don't think we did anything that's like huge today.
Today, no, we just covered like a surah. We just covered Surah Nur. And,
we started Surah Nur. One thing is we looked into like after we talked about Surah Nur. It was like we still had some time left. So we listened to a talk by Nomali Khan, which is he's one of a scholar, ustad, whatever you want to call him. And he was talking about the thing I really like about Nomali Khan is that he does a really good job of like really like telling you that like you're understanding this in English, yes, but it's not meant for you to understand in English. Like there's barriers when you just listen to the Quran in English or understand it via English. So he talks about the difference in Arabic and how you say one word, and it means completely different of what another word means. So in one ayah in Surah Nuh, he says it's translated in English as "I made da'wah to him." And so why he says "I made da'wah to him" and not "I used to make" is because if you were to say "I used to," it's a plurality, but if you say "I made," it's just singular. So for instance, you can say something like I used to go to that masjid, which means I used to go all the time, very frequently. And then I went to that masjid is different. It's like you went once. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he really when he goes into the linguistics of the Quran, it kind of blows your mind sometimes.
Mm-hmm. If you actually go back to what Cher was talking about, being able to adopt the culture that we have available here, and that's exactly what Nouman Ali Khan has done, and that's why he's able to connect with everyone in the Western area.
Yeah,
and I think too also a lot of scholars who were born and raised in this environment, I find that for especially someone like me who's or even other converts who are learning about Islam, it's, in my opinion, it's more beneficial for them to learn from these kind of scholars who know the society they live in, rather than trying to outsource their religious identity to a culture that isn't theirs. So whether that's getting fatwas or advice from someone who lives Saudi Arabia or whatever, who maybe gives them advice that would be applicable to the Saudi Arabian society or to the Moroccan society or so on and so forth, but it may not be completely applicable to someone living here, right? And so, for example, one scholar that I found particularly beneficial was Sheikh Yasser Qadi, because for me, I learn in a very his style of teaching mimics my style of learning, because it's very academic, it's very structured, and so that's how I prefer to learn. And so and that's kind of the style that he has developed living here and going through a very academic route.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. I think, one thing even about linguistics and something that Muhammad mentioned as well is that we're really able to relate to them, because a lot of times when you're reading something, especially when it comes to linguistics and things like that, your perception is based on personal experiences.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times. At least personally speaking. So when it's somebody who has seen similar things to you, done similar things to you, or is involved in similar things to you, that perception is similar, and they're able to connect on a different level, right? On a personal level, and it's engaging, right? And that's something that we're really trying to do in this podcast as well, is we're trying to have a normal conversation so that we can engage, the youth who are Canadian or North American and things like that. So,
so it's I think we come back to this thing where to get everyone to really embrace Islam is always evolving. It is never one stagnant way. Nowadays you see the form of lectures is not applicable to youth. Youth aren't very interested in just being talked at. They from my experience, what I've seen, and myself, I'm youth, so I'm 17. So when someone's talking at me, yes, it's beneficial, but you can get bored because there's really no interaction there. There's eye contact sometimes, and that gets awkward.
Right now.
I'll make eye contact with you for days.
Oh no! Ew.
Alpha male.
Oh.
Dominance
established.
Savage life.
I don't know. This is what I wanted to say before we left the patriotic topic, which we already have. I've been staring at this Canadian flag over there for 5 minutes.
Fitting.
Yeah. So this really ties into our next section of the podcast, if everyone's okay with it. Kind of take over in the host role here.
No, I requested.
So our current events kind of ties in with the whole patriotic thing. So within the past week, Canada's really started its acceptance of Syrian refugees, since been covered by the media, not only in Canada but internationally as well. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has done a exceptional job of receiving the refugees in a nice manner, and it's really a great time to be a Canadian Muslim.
Going off that topic, one thing that's been in the news recently is, if you guys have heard of the page Humans of New York. He is basically a photographer who goes around, takes pictures of people in New York, mostly New York, and posts their stories, and obviously with their permission. And recently he went to, I believe, Turkey and Turkey and one more country. And he was there, and he was interviewing people, about 12 families, Syrian families, who have gotten acceptance to immigrate to America. And he was just like giving their stories. And the most recent one that he's done is about this Syrian girl called Aya, and about like her entire story. So the short background behind that is that she went through a lot of things. She's actually like a refugee twice over. She's actually in Iraq. She's not a Syrian, sorry. And she was living in Iraq, and until then the war came, and then she had to leave, and she moved to Syria. And then they built their business there. Like their father was working fine, everything was going perfect until the war came there too. And then they had to move from there to Turkey. And then ever since they've been in Turkey, it's just been since their refugee status, they don't have any they can't get any medical benefits. They can't work they can't do full work because they don't have the requisite permits or whatever. And it's just it's a heartbreaking story. And then recently, the very last picture in the story, he does picture essays. So he does like 11-part essays. And the last picture, it was revealed that her dad, just one day he was like, I'm gonna be back, and then he just walks out the door. He never came back, and it's been 6 months, and she hasn't even told her younger siblings about it. And they keep asking like, where is he, when he's gonna come back? And she's like, yeah, he's gonna come back, don't worry. So, and the reason why Brandon or Humans of New York were referring or did this story is because she hasn't been accepted into America. So he started the whole petition in order to get Barack Obama
First name basis.
In order to get the United States to get him to or let her enter the United States as an immigrant, because her application was put on hold for random reason. So yeah, I was hoping that won't go through so she can come to Canada to petition Justin Trudeau.
I'm hoping that won't.
I mean,
no. But okay, so the whole refugee thing, Canadian wise, I think it's been like I was saying, it's a really good time to be a Canadian Muslim and to be a Canadian in general. Like honestly, like as far as my recollection goes, like 2006, Harper was elected, and really like my memory doesn't go far back. Like I don't even remember who was the prime minister before. Was that Martin?
Yeah, Paul Martin.
Yeah. So like I don't even remember Martin being. I remember stories of like Jean Chrétien, but like that's all I remember, right?
The legend.
The legend. My dad loves that guy, but
why?
But like, what do you mean, Jean Chrétien?
No, just tell me.
He's like one of the best prime ministers we've ever had.
Okay.
You can look into that yourself.
Okay. I will.
But like I don't remember being like this politically proud to be a Canadian. And the thing is, as a kid, I was always told to like, wow, you're Canadian, just polite, like awesome, like a standard of living is so high, and like quality of life is so high, and like all this. And then like I never really felt it until just recently, where all these things are happening and Canada's really being praised for the first time in a long time.
The Sith Lord Emperor Stephen Harper was defeated.
Yes.
Well, it's the first time in a while
Why?
since those values have been brought back in.
Yeah.
The Jedi values? Yes.
Well, like even kind of bouncing off what Atif was saying too about like how it's a good time to be a Canadian. It's like being proud to be Canadian, and like Canada in its response to like Syrians, to the refugees, and particularly like how warmly they've been receiving them. Like even in like Arab countries, like people are people are saying that Canada is like putting like Arab countries to shame.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of how our response has been, as opposed to like other countries in the Middle East, how they've responded somewhat poorly, in fact, to the refugee crisis, and even European countries, like even like places like Denmark. It says that they said that when refugees get to Denmark, it's almost like they're being blackmailed. Like there's a potential like blackmail happening with them. Like they have to like give up their like jewelry and like a lot of their possessions just to get in, right? Mm-hmm. So like in contrast to Canada, we had like the prime minister was there to greet the first Syrian refugees that came there, and then you had the children's choir that were singing.
But that was actually that was Talal Badru Alayna, which is like the song that was sung by the was reported to have been sung for the Prophet ﷺ when he immigrated to Medina, as he was walking into the city. But yeah, that video was actually like a winter festival. It wasn't for the refugees.
But the timing of it
But
was
it- yeah.
just was just
It happened at the same
Yeah.
it happened in December, but it happened very recently.
Mhm.
And recently, actually, NCCM, which is the National Canadian Council of Muslims, they gave like a community engagement award to the leader of the choir who did that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because it's just it went viral at exactly the right time.
Zeki's voice is very monotone.
Is it?
That's okay though. He told a great story, and
it's pretty monotone.
you know what? It just puts into perspective.
You can say that because
Pretty
he's
boring.
watching the.
Yeah, we are
he's
watching-
Yeah, like
and
everyone.
the sound is like one line.
I'm watching the sound waves, and everyone's voice is going up and down, like how it should. And Zeki's voice is like just.
dead like
Flatline.
my heart.
What's up?
Death.
Are you dead in the morning?
Maybe
Just please.
Dead and cold.
Some emotion.
no emotion. No. I don't have
But
any.
I am glad he did bring up that story because it once again puts into perspective just the struggles that refugees do go through and how difficult that life is. And I'm glad that you did bring up this topic because the last few podcasts we were discussing being role models and things like that. And you know what, Canada, you're being a role model right now. And that's and I'm glad.
You know that Just Rain vine where he's
Yeah.
like, Canada!
Canada.
That's just what I was thinking when you were like, Canada, you're being a role model.
So yeah, no, that's
I hate the
good.
living.
So another kind of thing that Canada's actually, just to clarify that, or I mean, it's not clarify, but to keep it real, I guess. Comparatively to the number of people or number of refugees that are coming out of Syria and other places, in terms of Muslim countries, I think Turkey has done the best because they have at least 2 million or something refugees
Wow,
housed
yeah.
inside Turkey.
Turkey's pretty solid.
And they have with 2 million people, refugees coming in, it's very hard to be able to logistically manage that. But they have 10 cities set up somewhere close to the borders where they provide them with food, water, shelter, all the basic amenities. But 2 million is a huge number. So I wouldn't put since Turkish society has their own struggles, I wouldn't put it as a blemish on them that these people are going through these issues while they're in Turkey. Yeah. Obviously there's good and there's bad, and with 2 million people, once again, it's very hard to manage. The other thing is, in terms of the other Muslim countries, their kind of response has been not as much as taking refugees, although they have other countries such as Jordan and even actually some people have fled to the normal parts of Iraq, I think, and but then a lot of monetary aid has been provided from there. And our number of refugees that we're accepting as Canada is about 25,000, right?
Yeah, 25,000
total
by the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's just a drop in the bucket if you look at the total numbers.
Yeah, of refugees.
Yeah, it's insane. But what I do love is that our Prime Minister is not being an absolute monster about it. I mean, we're just so used to Harper that it's a surprise. Oh, what? He's a human?
Yeah, you ever think what if Harper was Prime Minister right now?
Well,
You
that's
ever
what's
think
gonna-
what was happening?
That's what's gonna happen if Donald Trump wins in the States.
Okay, but Donald, there's no
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying. Imagine how scary it would be. Okay.
Yeah, but the whole Donald Trump thing. If Donald Trump wins the Republican candidate, whoever is the Democratic candidate is gonna win. I don't know why people are scared. If Donald Trump wins the Republican candidate, you're gonna have a Democratic office. It's I at least have that much faith and certainty that Americans are not that dumb.
That insult.
But
That low-key
you
insult.
hear that 30% want to bomb Jafar.
Bon Agrabah?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Agrabah from Aladdin.
Yeah.
Love it. It's
The-
a fictional character.
It's a city from Aladdin, a fictional movie by Disney. Speaking of Disney,
We know what
Speaking of Disney,
you couldn't have missed this on this week's episode. Cher, what are we about to talk about?
I really hope it's not Star Wars.
It's Star
Okay,
Wars.
okay, at least let me lead it off
Okay, go ahead.
and help me here. So I'm not part of the Star Wars realm, we all know that. But I will have to show them some respect because they got $57 million at the box office.
I don't understand how you're surprised.
I have to expose Atif here. After he came out from watching the movie Thursday night, he was all like, "I just watched a Star Wars movie."
Yeah,
I just watched a Star
It's a
Wars
big
movie.
moment for
This
us.
was the first Star Wars movie I've ever seen in theaters, and I'm happy to say it was the Episode 7 movie because it wasn't bad, and
Oh, no spoilers.
No
by the way.
spoilers.
We're not
No
giving
spoilers.
spoilers. We don't have to worry about that.
It wasn't
I would
bad.
care.
Spoiler alert. Anyways,
Wait, I have
we,
a question.
Although I did see a car
So
with
quick.
the spoiler that says
Yeah.
Star Wars on it.
we
Yeah, go
saw
ahead.
it Thursday night on the 17th. So we saw it before a lot of people. We saw it in the first showing. I
The
think.
second one.
The second showing. And I've never ever seen people dressed as movie characters before in a theater. It was a really nice atmosphere. It was like a bunch of nerds together. It was great. And like my favorite thing was on Twitter. There was like this one like tweet that was like Star Wars spoiler. And so like I already watched the movie, so I was like whatever. So I kept reading. It was like okay, now all the nerds have stopped reading. Party at my house tomorrow night.
I had a question. Okay, so I'm with Cher. I'm one of the 1% that's never seen a Star Wars movie. But
It's more than 1%.
okay, but anyways, like, is it a movie that like you can just jump in and watch and you'll get?
So episode 7 is geared toward a huge new generation of people who most likely have not seen Star Wars. I know 3 people at this table who have never seen the Star Wars. 4.
Well, now I have plans tonight.
4 people out of the 7 in this room have never seen a Star Wars movie, which is the majority. So this movie, like, a lot of people know a lot about Star Wars, so they get into the movie and they keep repeating some stuff. Like, they keep repeating people's relations, and you're like, why do you keep saying this? But as a person who's never seen the movie before, you need to know this, so the movie makes sense to you. So there's like this movie is like it just establishes what's going to happen in the trilogy, and like not a lot of people, not going to mention names, but are not satisfied with this.
Actually, just one person. When we were leaving the theater afterwards, just like actually this person is actually a huge Star Wars boy, the biggest one out of everyone of the group that
We all
was
know
there.
who this is now.
Yeah, we all know who this is. But like he was saying that it wasn't like there's too many unanswered questions.
Yeah,
I will let Aaron
so-
answer these questions.
Yeah, so like the thing is that I watched a good review on The Force Awakens, and the problem of like when you're telling a story, and especially with one like Star Wars where there's so much exposition, right? There's so much you could get into. Like if you try and like wrap up every little thing, you just end up totally convoluting it, and like that's actually a good reflection on storytelling, on like how to tell a proper story. Like there are times when you don't want to give away everything, right? You have to keep your audience kind of like suspended and like oh, what's going to happen next? So like yes, there are things that are not addressed in Star Wars, in the new Star Wars movie, which I was personally fine with because again, slight little bit of like nerd history here with
Mystery.
with with the prequels, like with the prequel movies. Like the thing is that every prequel movie tried to like wrap everything up nicely in a bow, and like it just became so overburdened with exposition and like needless information,
Whining.
and whining, right? And so the thing is that with this new Star Wars movie, it pares back a lot of this unnecessary exposition that could really like bog the story down. Like I remember with Star Wars, it always starts up with like the opening crawl where you got like the little bits of like what's happening in the story, and it was so simple and so like straight to the point where it's like I was watching and I was like, oh, this is like I can just like jump right in and get what's going on. I don't have to worry about like politics or trade federations or any of that garbage like with the prequels. Like it's just out to tell a simple story.
Yeah,
right?
it literally just tells you since the last movie this happens, and they all tell that in one sentence, like simple sentence, and then they're like, now we're trying to do this. Watch the movie. Like this literally it. You won't be confused when you watch it.
And again, like tying it back to just like storytelling in general, as someone like as a writer, like I like to tell stories. And when I was in school, like we would have like writing groups and everything, and there would be people who would just like overload everything with like exposition and flashbacks and like it just and totally not actually
all the dream.
yeah, and just like not actually get to what the point of the story was, right? And so I think like for the artistic types who are like listening to the podcast or anyone in general, like if you're trying to tell a good story, like honestly, less is more.
Yeah,
like less is more. Like stick to kind of the bare bones. I know this is kind of like becoming like a writing podcast for a moment here, but this is my time to shine. Thank you.
Yes, check out muslimisms.com.
It's Muslisms, MUSLISMS.com.
MUSLIM. No.
I hope someone out there knows that song.
Yes.
I know that song.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Song?
Goal achieved.
Well, we'll show you.
So now that we're passing, we're getting to the 30-minute mark here.
Yes.
We should really get into the meat and
Yes.
potatoes of this podcast.
No.
Eating
Share.
potatoes.
Share if you want to.
I'm glad we were able to touch on Star Wars for
Are you glad? Be honest.
For the fourth, no. It's
No,
okay.
no.
It's okay. Like I'm still never gonna watch it, but
You're not gonna
Wow.
watch episode 7?
no.
I'll buy your
no.
ticket.
Anyway,
I'm just gonna kidnap Cher and like make him watch it.
no. Just keep these conversations at the public library or
Like,
something.
I kept,
So-
I kept the ticket. It's like memorabilia.
Thanks for sharing.
Hey.
And oh,
By the way,
my-
Adam
my
is like the
question-
progenitor of the Cher jokes.
So my question from the
Actually,
beginning of the
somebody
podcast,
in the
if you
first
guys,
grade.
remember, share. What was it, Aaron? Aaron, I asked you the question. I
Yeah.
forgot. Can you ask Share for me?
Share. Do you believe?
In Love After Life.
Hey.
So there are rumors going around that I'm actually the original Cher, the creator of several one-hit wonders.
And auto-tune.
Wait a
And
second.
auto-tune, my
You can't be the creator of several one-hit wonders. Then you're just a hit wonder.
hits wonders.
Hit
I don't
wonder.
know. I don't know what that would be, but
I'm a several hit
But since
wonder.
you guys can't see my face, it's gonna remain a mystery. Career was going down a bad road and had to join an unpaid podcast to get it back on track.
How
So
the mighty have fallen.
I will regain here. So I mean, for the last few episodes, guys, like we have really talked about things that can falter your faith. We've talked about things that we're exposed to that can falter your faith, and we've talked a lot about current events that that have been pretty negative, that again can falter your faith. So why not look on the bright side today a little bit and talk about what faith's done for us, some of the benefits of faith, and what it means to have faith, I guess, for you, right? So
halal food.
All right,
What?
Zeki,
Okay.
that's enough for you today.
All right.
yeah, you've
Hi.
hit your threshold today. So
Isn't it true?
you're having meat sweats, halal
I am.
meat sweats. So I guess though I'm not
Oh.
going to take the mic for too much longer, but I guess what it means for me to have faith, it creates hope, right? So when something bad's happening, you have that hope that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make everything okay. If something good's happening, you have that motivation to keep doing good, right? And I just have one quote not one quote, it's a Quranic verse that I want to talk about. And I've talked about it with my Yusra a couple times, Aaron, especially, it's in Surah Inshira, and it's number 94.
I was
Line-
gonna take that.
Yeah?
one too.
Line number 6 and 7. It means a lot to a lot of us. So it's line 6 and 7, and it says, "Surely with difficulty is ease. With difficulty is surely ease." So I mean, it just gives you that hope again, right? That if something's going bad, it's going to be okay. And the way that it's written, it's almost like the ease is going to overpower the difficulty. So if you can get through that difficulty with that faith, everything's going to be okay. And also, like I said, it motivates you to do good.
Yeah. I got nothing
Yep.
to say on that one. Go ahead.
I mean, for me personally, so many times, like, you think that you're trapped in a corner with nowhere to go. And, like, what am I going to do? But, you just turn to Allah and you have that faith. And Allah provides a way. Whether it's being school, like, sometimes my marks haven't been up to par. And I'm like, what am I going to do with my career? How am I going to get into university? And alhamdulillah, Allah provides a way. Or, if it's like, I'm a big sports guy. So it's like,
This is funny because everything he's wearing is your pants sports?
No.
Sports pants?
no,
Jacket, shirt, and toque.
no, my shirt is,
Actually, Adam
Still
always has
sports branded,
at least 2 pieces of sports memorabilia on him at all times. I've never seen him.
I gotta represent my
Even
team.
when he's wearing a Spider-Man
Even when
shirt.
he's at a wedding.
If you want to marry Adam, if he can support the Oilers through 2007, he can support you.
Oh, that's
I'm
actually.
gonna use
he's
that on my Shadi.com profile. Thanks.
I saw that on like a snapshot of a Tinder profile on Twitter. I thought it was great.
Oh, you stole
Can
it.
I
Well,
just,
anyways,
Yeah, go ahead.
Saki, come on.
Okay.
Threshold,
So-
bro.
Like, even with, like, sports, like, for me, I take, like, hockey very seriously. So if I'm about to play, like, a big championship game, then, I'm, like, very nervous and very, like, on the edge of my seat. But I find, like, a trick that I always do, well, it's not really a trick, it's something that I do, is I try to pray, like, 2 rak'ah nafil before my game. And it really calms the nerves down. And, like, that's what faith has done for me. And just my main point here is that whenever you think you're at the end of the road or you're trapped in a corner, if you have faith, you'll believe that Allah will help you to find a way out of whatever you're in trouble with. Okay?
Yeah, and it's really easy to say all this, but for me it's been a constant struggle for me to like really implement and like put all my faith in Allah and like stuff like this. Like it's like not a struggle, but like a thing that I've been developing like over time. So it's like I don't think it's ever come to anyone all at once. It's like that's it.
Yeah.
Allah is that's my everything. It doesn't come to anybody at once, no matter how strong your faith is, because really like humans are meant to be like reliant and distracted and like imperfect and all this. So like to listen to it is one thing, but to implement it is another thing. And
actually, one of the things that one of the names of the Quran that's actually mentioned in the Quran, I believe, or it's mentioned in the Hadith literature, is that the Quran itself is called Tadhkirah, which means that it's like a reminder. And why that's so significant is because, as we just mentioned, that human beings are so distracted and just like so weak in terms of like attention span that you need a reminder, and you need a constant reminder. And that's why it's not like the Quran could also be called a book, which it is, but like why is it specifically mentioned as a reminder? Because you need to keep repeating reminders, otherwise they don't serve their purpose.
Like the only way to get good at anything is to practice. So like the only way to get better at your faith is to practice your faith.
Well, like for faith, it's a lot like gains, right? Like in the gym, like if you're working out,
this guy.
Let him go.
Okay, my analogies might be comical, but they're applicable. Okay,
Oh my
so
God.
with like gains in the gym, like if you're making gains and then you stop, then you notice that the muscle that you built, you lose it over time. Just like with faith, it's like if you practice, you have faith. Like for example, in Ramadan, like a lot of us, we have like really high faith because for 30 days you're fasting, you're praying Tarawih, you're doing this, and this, and then like the month after you're like, it's kind of drop off a bit.
Month after
right?
you're into drugs and have a girlfriend, kid on the way.
Actually, the
Wait, I didn't
you didn't
finish.
finish?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wow, just shut down.
Okay, so yeah, like just like with faith, you have to constantly be at it, and everyone kind of has their own way. Like for me, when I find that I'm slipping, I try to make sure, am I praying on time? Am I waking up for Fajr? Am I trying to read some Quran every day? It's these little reminders that that you have to keep doing in order to keep your faith up to par.
Mm-hmm.
So
Your Iman gains are important to us here at My Cave.
So I think kind of bouncing off that too is that, like we said, faith doesn't just come. Like it's not something that, you suddenly just decide that you're going to, have all like total faith in Allah and everything. Like it's something that does take a while for you to develop, right? And the only way really to develop that is to go through hardships, right? Because when you go through hardships, that's kind of, you can look at it as an opportunity to actually come closer to Allah, right? So like there's been times in my life where like I've gone through hardships, and the thing is that like for me, like I'd always try and like control the situation. Like I get very like anxious when I feel that something's out of my control, right? And so like there's been moments where like I realized that I had no control. That literally like the only thing that I could do right now is just like leave, like I did my part and leave the rest up to Allah. But that's something that does take like time to go through, right? It's like it's an iterative process. Like it's something that you have to always kind of be working on.
I guess going off of that, I think it was a hadith that says that the stronger believer is better than the weak, but both are good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's keeping in mind just that the reminder is that having weak faith isn't necessarily a bad thing. We all go through that. And
having a weak faith is just part of being a Muslim. Like I've never met a Muslim who's had strong, abnormal, like very intense faith her whole life. It's
just being able to deal with it.
It's unrealistic, really.
Yeah.
Like,
just expecting that same Iman boost during Ramadan and afterwards is just,
kid on the way.
you can't expect that to just
Like
get on.
practice.
are you trying to tell us something?
Yeah, man.
I know, right?
Like some hints right now, man. Like,
We'll discuss this in Osir Atif.
It was like, funny story actually. So yesterday there was a McAfee blood
Funny
drive.
story, my kid.
Blood drive. You won't believe what little Atif did yesterday. I'm just kidding. But like, we had a blood drive yesterday, I believe. Yeah. Were any of you there? Aaron, you were there. So like, I was like, we were donating blood, and so I'm in the waiting area, getting ready to get called up so I can donate. And my cousin Abid comes up to me, and I was sitting alone, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey," he's trying to get me to like really think about it and like faint and whatever. He's like, hey, isn't it weird how there's like a metal thing going into your arm and just sucking your blood? And he's trying to like psych me out. And like I looked over to the woman behind me and she was working and I was like, excuse me, I don't know this guy, but he keeps harassing me and trying to get me to faint. And she like looks at him and I was like, he hangs his head down and just like starts walking away.
I can imagine that.
And then I look over to her and she's like kind of laughing. I was like, can you go and pretend to kick him out? He's my cousin. And she was like, yeah, sure. She goes up to him and Aaron was right beside him when this happened. She goes up to him and he's like, I'm gonna ask you to leave. And then like everyone, she was like, this was in the common area, so everyone heard it. And I was like, oh man. And she like starts laughing, like gives him a pat on the back. It was so funny. And then okay, so the reason I brought up the blood thing was this is just funny, right? So like you have like an interview process beforehand. So like she like asks you all these questions and she's like, have you ever done IV drugs or whatever? Can I see the bends in your arms to make sure that you haven't done any IV drugs? And then I very like purposely nervously like bring up my sleeve and she's like having none of it. She looks at me like, dude, just this isn't the time for jokes, please. And like and then I like roll it. I was like, here, look.
When I went in, actually, this was kind of a neat little moment. Was so when they go through the questions and everything, they ask, have you traveled outside of Canada? And I had, because I went
for Hajj.
Yeah. And so when she asked where I went, I was like, oh, I just went to Saudi Arabia. And then she's like, okay. And then the topic actually ended up coming up was like, like how was it over there? Like, she actually asked me like, did you go for a pilgrimage? And I was like, oh yeah, like the nurse.
Did they not ban you?
No.
They banned me for that.
Yeah, because you got out of the car, you scrubbed.
No, literally, like, it's, like, there were a few cities that she said that were, like, high-risk cities, but Mecca and Medina were banned.
Okay.
So,
Anyway.
Zeki's banned for donating blood for 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. So, like, no, it was just, like, one of those kind of cool moments where, like, I started talking to her, particularly about, like, Arabic, right? And she asked, like, oh, do you know how to speak Arabic? Can you write it? And I was like, oh, no, I'm learning, but, like, the thing with Arabic and with the Quran is that, like, the language is very like beautiful, like it's very like deep and metaphorical, right? And even for someone like me who doesn't necessarily like understand what I'm reading all the time, if I'm trying to read it in Arabic, there's still like a sense of rhythm and rhyme to it. So it actually makes it like easy, like relatively easy to memorize. So like that's actually one of the miracles of the Quran is that even for someone who knows no Arabic, they can still memorize an entire book that's in Arabic. And that's not something you can do with like French or German.
Right.
Like you can't.
That's a very good point.
I never thought of that.
I've been hanging on to this quote for so long. Can I just like say
No.
it? Fine.
No, you can just say it.
Go ahead.
I was just like on like an activism perspective. If you are like all the kind of darkness that's in the world and how it's all like the wars in Syria and in Iraq and like all the refugees that are coming out. You kind of sometimes you tend to lose hope and you're like, well, what's the point? Like, why is everything so sad and gloomy? So being me, I was reminded of a quote from Gandalf.
Oh my God! I told you say no.
I'm sorry.
No!
I'm sorry. I take full
I'm saying
responsibility
no.
of this.
Okay, let me just read it. Okay, it's so relevant.
We'll have a chat
So-
We've
after.
already
Wait,
talked about
I
Star
need to-
Wars. You're piling on to this nerd.
Yeah,
I
like I
will.
said, man.
Wait, I
take
want to
it-
cut off Zaki just honorarily.
Yeah.
He's been cutting me off, but now you made
I
me.
cut everyone off. I cut you.
Okay, guys.
Cut you.
I'm gonna let you
Finish
I'm gonna
the
finish.
quote. Finish the
Zeki,
quote.
say your quote.
Yeah.
Okay, he's like, so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us.
Nice.
Excellent.
That's a very
Boom!
relevant
That's a good quote. It's a
Get
good
enough quote.
So,
Why did you take 5 minutes to introduce a 2-sentence quote?
Because
all right,
People keep
no
cutting
reason.
him off.
All right, well,
so guys, we do have a local celebrity with us here today.
Adam
like I
Z
did
of
mention,
Zango
Adam Z is in
Industries.
the house.
But I'm not a rapper.
He's not a rapper. He is a poet.
All right, so here's
And,
here's what we'll do. So we're gonna end it off with Adam's freestyle. If it goes extremely bad, you'll hear a cut, and then we'll end it. But if it goes well, you're gonna hear all of it.
Can this mic pick up beatboxing?
Yeah, too much actually. So like cover yourself.
Okay,
up a
okay,
little.
all right. So I'll start it off.
Melhem, if you get any spit on you, speak up.
Actually,
All right.
just don't.
I'll just
You'll
back
ruin
up.
the recording.
So this is how we're gonna
Just
end it
take
off, guys. Assalamu alaikum. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Let's go.
I'm here in the cave recording a podcast, and to my Muslim brothers and sisters, I want to say salam. I know that we're in a very cold month, but I'm here to show you that I got hub for all of y'all. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for tuning in and hope that Allah showers His blessing. So I'm about to sign off. About to go off in 3, 2, 1.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of My Cave Podcast. If you have any comments, questions, or just want to roast the team, email us at mycavepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, My Cave Podcast. Thanks for listening again. Assalamu alaikum. That's a wrap.